Welcome back to the COVID-19 Niagara update on The Source on your TV. A lot of people talking about the economic impact of the pandemic, looking at a shrinkage of the country's GDP and more importantly, more personally, a shrinkage of the value of a lot of people's RRSPs and other retirement plans. We'll talk about that in just a moment with Niagara West MP Dean Allison. But first, Dean, let's talk about what's happening from your end of things and your constituency office. How are you handling the pandemic in your office and the volume of calls that you are receiving?
Sure. We've been getting, our phone's been ringing off the hook, and there's two or three things they're looking at. First of all, it's like I lost my job, so what programs are available? That's certainly one thing. The second thing is there's still some Canadians from abroad that we're trying to get home. So there's a number of people saying, listen, what can I do? And where are we going from there? And then I think the third thing is just really people are wondering, like, what's next? I mean, I had a lot of small businesses really concerned. There was a great announcement this morning by the federal government. I'll give them kudos where kudos are earned. And I think that is a good thing. Small businesses have been struggling trying to figure out how to keep the lights on. So those are sort of been the three. There's more, but obviously those are the top three things that preoccupy all our time at this point in time.
You mentioned an announcement this morning from Prime Minister Trudeau, and he has, his government has decided to bump up from 10% to 75% the wage subsidy for small businesses hit by the novel coronavirus. Obviously something that is really, really important to keep small businesses viable to continue during this pandemic.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things I was hearing from small, medium-sized businesses was, listen, if we're even allowed to be open, so, we've got essential and non-essential businesses, the challenge is sales are down, right? We're encouraging everyone to practice social distancing or planking the curve, whatever you want to call it. So the reality is not many people are out, and businesses that are open are probably operating about 50%. And so what we heard people say was the 10% wage subsidy was just not going to be enough, hit with the fact that the costs remain the same. Right. And so the announcement of 75% wage subsidy, we don't know all the details, but this is a great start. There's also some talk about $40,000 and possibly an interest-free loan. There's also maybe a deferral of HST in terms of remittances to the government. So as we figure out what those details are over the coming weeks and months, those will be substantial for our small and medium-sized businesses to keep the doors open because they've been calling saying they're in big trouble.
From an employee aspect as well, from the workers, there was a grant of $5,000, some money that they can access that they would have to apply for, which was another big announcement. But hearing from some small and medium-sized business owners, they looked at that $5,000 and they thought, that's great, but how do we keep the businesses open? So today's announcements go a long way towards making that possible.
Absolutely. Today's announcement was huge. I've been talking to small businesses, literally for a week, and they're saying we are really worried about the existence of our business in the coming weeks and months. So I think at the end of the day, today's announcement was a great start. Let's find out the details of the coming days, and then we'll see how that could be effective for small and medium-sized businesses.
Do the Conservatives and the NDP and the Liberals have to work together, and have you seen some success and some support from the three parties together in this time of crisis?
Yeah, so, when they wanted to pass the emergency measures, what they actually had come up with was a plan to sort of give them unlimited access in terms of raising taxes and spending over the next 21 months. They sat down, worked through the night, and they got something figured out. So there's a good example of working together. First thing. Second thing is not only us that's been calling on for a higher wage subsidy for small and medium-sized businesses, but organizations like the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. So when you have opposition members saying, listen, what you're doing is good, or maybe it's missing the mark, or maybe we could do more in other areas. Now what I hear by today's announcement is the government saying, we're listening to what you're saying, we're listening to what small businesses are saying, and we will move in that direction. So that, to me, is a great example of all parties working together.
What are some of the primary concerns, other than the ones that you mentioned up at the top? What are some of the other primary concerns in your riding of Niagara West?
One of the concerns that we think was dealt with was the whole issue around temporary foreign workers. I've got a large agriculture community, and so from that perspective, the season for planting is right around the corner. And there was supposed to be 4,000 temporary foreign workers coming in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then another 5,000 coming after that. And so there was a little bit of uncertainty given the rules that were saying that the borders are going to be closed only to Canadians to come home, and there'll be no non-essential travel. So with some clarification to the ministers of Agriculture, Border Services, and Immigration, it was clarified that some of these workers are actually essential, and they will working to get them here as we speak. So there's an example that my riding be more rural nature, more agriculture, has a different set of needs, and that one was specific to ours.
Well, thanks very much for joining us today. That's MP Dean Allison of Niagara West. Thanks again, Dean.
Great to be on. Thanks for having me. And you guys have a safe day.
Thank you, Dean.